back to Free Action. Today I'm going to be responding to a message I got. Arcacius, are there any RPGs you've played that you haven't found that had merit? Well, while I take a little bit of a negative view to that, I feel that you are well in your right to assume that, seeing how the past three I've said do have merit, even if they aren't the best. And my answer is yes, I have two. I have two RPGs I've played that I have not found merit. In order to cover one of them, I need to also cover the best made system I have ever seen. Today, I'm talking about White Wolves, Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire the Requiem. Now, when referring to these, I'll refer to it as New Vampire and Old Vampire. Vampire the Masquerade is old, new one is Requiem. Now, with this, they run off of the same system. 30-10 system. You roll as many dice as you have in your attribute and your skill and try and beat a difficulty. It allows for a lot of unique character combinations, including three main categories of stats with three subsections. What you have is you have your physical, your social, and your mental, each divvied down into three separate categories, allowing for you to play either a physical combat character or an athlete, smooth talker, manipulator, a scholar, so on and so forth. They both do this really well. The main difference between the two is, in Vampire the Masquerade, the difficulty is based off of whether you're trying to succeed. If you're trying to do a task, that's fairly easy. You don't have to roll as high on the difficulty. The more successes, the better you succeed. A person who is really bad at something, has never had training in it before, is never going to be able to succeed as well as somebody who's got massive amounts of training. Very different thing when it comes to New Vampire. Vampire the Requiem, you have to meet a difficulty of 8 on a 10-sided dice. In order to represent incremental difficulty and opposition, they remove dice from your pool. Now my problem with this is, in Old Vampire, the way the system works allows you to play superpowered badasses. You can jump from color to color, you can convince a politician to work in your favor. It allows you to do many things. In New Vampire, Vampire the Requiem, it's a lot more difficult in order to do that. Much more difficult to achieve the tasks you want. I'll give you an example of the same instance in Vampire the Masquerade and Vampire the Requiem. Vampire the Masquerade, you're a close combat specialist, so you're trying to punch some guy in the face. You've got 7 dice in your dice pool. So, because he's in a defensive stance and he's trying to dodge, you increase the difficulty, and they attempt to dodge as their own thing to remove your dice. But they have to actually try to dodge. So he succeeds and gets 2 successes. So you need to be able to beat target by at least 2. Now, because you're trying to punch him in the head, this is a fairly difficult task, so let's give it difficulty 7. You roll your 7 dice, which is pretty good, and you get 3 successes and you beat by 1. Vampire the Requiem, you're aiming for the head, so you remove 2 dice. Person's in defensive mode, so you remove 2 dice. So instead of 7 you have 3. You roll. Difficulty is high, so you might get 1 success. If you did hit him, it is barely a hit. Now there are things that I like in Vampire the Requiem. There are 3 things that I like. First of all, the differing ideologies. In Vampire the Requiem, you can choose between whatever covenant you came from. Each one has different ideologies. Like, there's a hippie group that's like old clan witches. There's like the church. You've got the different groups. And a lot of them have powers to go along with it. In Vampire the Masquerade, you have 2, maybe 3 groups. You've got the Camarilla, which are bureaucratic backstabbers, do whatever they can for power whenever possible, and everybody has to follow by the exact rules. 7. Homicidal maniacs. Not the same as the Malkavians, who are insane maniacs. And maybe the Inoc, who don't want to do anything. That's one of the things I like. Another thing I like is the fact that in Vampire the Requiem, there are some abilities that, if you have enough skills, work together to create a nice blend of how much you actually can do. For example, Auspex, which is your vision, your sensory, and celerity, which is your super speed. If you have them together, you can read something traveling at like 80 miles an hour. A bus is driving down the highway and you're standing on the side. You can read what the headline of a person sitting there reading the newspaper. Something you would never be able to do without superpowers. Not necessarily powerful, but definitely interesting. Third thing is they make the blood potency much more expensive in order to get. Blood potency is essentially how powerful you are as a vampire minus your skill. They make it so you go incrementally, you can drink blood from certain levels, because if you're too strong, you just can't draw the nourishment out of animals and humans. When you start, you can drink blood out of animals really easily. But as it goes on, you get more and more potent blood. You're unable to do this anymore. Plus, it costs 3 times as much, so you actually have to be willing to put all your points in order to get the best bonus, which most of the time isn't worth it. Now, what's in common with all of those is, well, they are what I like. You could merely just add them into Old Vampire. Cause the system is so similar, almost identical, sure you might have to rename a couple of things, but you can pretty much take what New Vampire had that's good, pick it up, and drop it into Old Vampire. Something that both systems do really well, however, that I want to make a note of. It has the best resource system in a game I've ever seen. If you do not have blood, you go crazy. In order to use a lot of your powers, you need to use up blood. If you don't have blood, you fall into a coma. It essentializes power with your staying alive. Some of the best powers, like celerity, where you can go twice, 3 times, 4 times as fast as a normal human, you need blood in order to use it. It's a very potent ability and requires blood. If you don't use blood, you can't get as much power out of you being a vampire. The game is very good for role-playing, both of them, but personally, if you're going to play, don't get Vampire the Requiem, get Vampire the Masquerade. It's just better. Strictly better than Vampire the Requiem. Much more supplements and source material if you're looking for that. They're also cheaper, so you can get that way. On the flip side, you can get any brand new material for Vampire the Masquerade you can only get for Vampire the Requiem. And thank you for watching. This has been Free Action, and this is Arcacius signing off. See you guys next time.